Thinking of buying land here in South Dakota? This is the checklist that I'm going to give you today that we use when we're looking at land deals for customers, for ourselves, anything like that. So if you miss one of these items on this checklist, this could cost you $100,000 or more. Most people call and they're like, I see this land for $40,000 and lots in the area are 150, 200. Well, there's some real challenges with that land, okay? Real challenges. So when it comes to buying land, most people only look at the price in the view, but the real money and the real risk is hidden in the details. That's why I put together this land checklist that we use here every day when we're buying land. It covers everything you need to know. So let's walk through it right now. All right, let's start with the infrastructure that is there. Okay, so every lot is totally different. This is where it really differs from your forested property to your in town, right? Typically, you have natural gas, water, sewer, all that stuff there in town. Still, you need to make sure where is it? Okay, that could be a big deal. If you get an older lot, especially, sometimes you got to spend a lot of time figuring out where things are at, and that all costs money. But more importantly, the forested land is like, where are the utilities? Where is everything at? What's included? Are we drilling wells? How deep are the wells in the area? Things like that. Just cover the infrastructure. Make sure you know every detail, where it's at, and not just, take someone's word for it. Make sure it is actually there. We've actually worked in neighborhoods where they said things were there and just actually just like the conduits were ran and stuff wasn't pulled through yet. We worked it out, but I'm just saying this list is all the things that you run through in the last 12 years that I have of exactly, things to look out for. Next up, Perc Test. Okay, this tells you if the soil can handle a septic system. And so there's two types. There's just a standard system with infiltrators, and that's generally $15,000 to $25,000 typically. And then there is a mound system. If the soil doesn't perk, you might have to get an engineered mound system. And unfortunately, you can see them. They're fine. It is what it is, but you're going to want to pay attention. Where are we putting this? Things like that. These are just very important topics to pay attention to. Once again, that could be $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, that engineered system, depending on how it ends up, what the engineer says. So you have to pay for that. You need an engineer to do it. And generally it's around $1,000. So make sure you're paying attention to this. You can kind of get a general idea from other homes in the area, so it doesn't hurt to talk to the neighbors, but every lot is totally different. So it isn't the end all be all. If both your neighbors perked fine, you still could have a problem, but just know there's probably a solution. I've never seen there not be one. It just ends up costing you extra money. And if you're okay with that extra expense anyway, then a perk test, that's up to you. Okay, just something to definitely pay attention to. All right, next up is easements, and these determine a lot of different things. Where are the utilities running? Do the neighbors have access to the property? Does the city? I just did one where the city had an easement to access some of their land in the back. So pay attention to the easements. Always make sure you get a location exhibit or a full boundary survey and know where your easements are at. Very, very, very important. Next up, if you're building in a subdivision and you don't have a bunch of land that you bought, there typically is a ARC review committee, okay, or architectural review committee, aka ARC. All right, so most subdivisions have specific things, minimum square footages. There's one here where you have to have a certain number of porches. You have to have a certain amount of rock on your house. Like there's a lot of different variables. Sometimes you need a landscape architect to design the landscape for the neighborhood. It needs a certain amount of trees and all this stuff. So just really pay attention because once again, that's going to determine the cost. I'll give you an easy example of this is up in Miller Ranch, it's 1,400 square foot minimum, but on the main level, but over in Countryside, it's 1,600 square foot. Well, that could be $50,000 to $100,000 difference in your budget. And maybe you don't want 1,600 square foot. So there's a lot of variables there to pay attention to. So definitely make sure you're paying attention to what's in the ARC. All right, floodplain is your home in a floodplain. I personally don't mess with floodplains. I don't buy my real estate in a floodplain ever. Every investor has a certain criteria. I don't buy homes in floodplain. Pay attention, know what you're doing. Some people buy them in cash and then they don't need to worry about it. But generally, they're in a floodplain for a reason. But flood insurance can be anywhere from $1,500 a year to, I mean, I've seen 800, but typically flood insurance only goes up. So something to pay attention to, but I have seen quotes as high as $15,000 a year. So definitely pay attention to the floodplain, something to look for. Also, sometimes you might want to do test holes. We do this often for rock. Okay, so rock can definitely is something. I've hit rock twice on homes I've built. I knew it was there the second time. I didn't know the first. Once again, we bought the lot next to us. So generally you get a good idea of what's there based on what's around you. But the first time we hit rock, no one in the neighborhood had, hit rock before me, of course. So anyway, developer was gracious and helped out with the cost of that. Not always the scenario, but definitely doesn't hurt to do 3 or 4 test holes where you're planning on putting your foundation to see if there's any rock there. That could be 20 grand, 30 grand, 100 grand. Okay, so it can make a difference. Once again, there's a lot here in Spearfish for sale that I know has a ton of rock. It's going to be 100 grand to build on that lot, and that's why the lot's cheap, although it's not cheap enough. But just pay attention. Is there rock? And once again, utilities, very important. Pay attention. Are they there? What's there? Definitely something to pay attention to. Do you need to do a curb cut? Some neighborhoods require you cut out the curb when you put your driveway in. Well, that could be a $5,000 expense. Okay, so once again, these are all things that add up. No big deal, but just pay attention to them. Is the water there, right? Is the curb stop already installed? Is there a tap fee? Is there hookup costs? Things like that. What's a permit cost in the town? Some of this stuff adds up really, really quick. Now, pay attention to specific subdivisions. I've got a lot of lessons over the years in going in a neighborhood. And once again, one of the biggest things is they said, hey, power's ran over there. Power wasn't ran. Um, the conduit was ran in the ground, but it hadn't been pulled through yet. Now, once again, we worked it out all good. They didn't even realize that it hadn't been done yet. So definitely pay attention. In water tap fees, I know of another neighborhood, it's like $7,500 for water tap fees. Well, that adds up. I mean, you got to pay attention. Now you got septic. Now you got water tap fees. As you can see, all this stuff adds up. So definitely pay attention. Another thing is transformers for power. Okay, if you need to take the power over, I believe it's 500 feet, you have to add a second transformer, which is going to be like $5,000. It just depends on, the power company has to go do all that. Sometimes they want you to put 2 conduits in the ground so they have a backup in case something happens to the first one. This is very common. Okay, so definitely pay attention to this. And what's there is you need high-speed internet. Luckily, Starlink's here now, so a lot of these problems don't exist anymore because Starlink is phenomenal internet. And so, is there natural gas there? Do you need propane? Like all this stuff you need to pay attention to for sure. Are the corners actually marked? Okay. We always like to get the corners marked for our customers because you want to know what you're buying. So are they pinned? Make sure they're pinned. Make sure you can see where they're at. Make sure you've checked all that stuff out. Once again, get all the fees. Sometimes there's fees to tap into the water, even if it's there in the neighborhood and it's a neighborhood system. Oftentimes there is tap fees as well. And what are the rules there? This is huge, guys. The HOA. Pay attention to the covenants. I don't know how many times people buy things they don't actually read the covenants. Like, can you put an RV there? Can you build a shop? Can you run a business? There's just so many different things that you need to pay attention to. Make sure and know your HOA rules inside and out. Also, something to pay attention to is sometimes there's specific setbacks for specific neighborhoods. Like I've been in neighborhoods where you have to, they're 3, 4, 5, 10-acre lots. You have to build 50 foot off the lot lines. Well, sometimes the build site might be on the edge of the lot, and that could be very problematic. So make sure, and once again, this is going to be in the covenants, you know your setbacks. Okay. So don't forget also double check for rock. Sometimes there's springs, we've had lots where there's natural springs. Okay. Then we got to deal with that. And once again, that can get expensive because you have to, reroute the spring. Oftentimes they're underneath foundation. So we have to deal with that. Okay. So there's a lot of variables. This isn't cut and dry. A lot of people, they just go buy land and it doesn't work like that. You want to work with somebody who knows the neighborhood, a realtor that does a good job for you and has a list like we have to know that. Also, something else is you could have to put specific culverts in. Actually, my neighborhood, it's all engineered for drainage. And so you have to put in specific culverts on every single lot. Well, a lot of people don't realize that stuff. Once again, most people don't go through the covenants, so pay attention to that. Could be another $3, $4, $5, $10,000, depending on what they do. Okay, so this checklist is what keeps buyers from making a six-figure mistake, guys. If you got value from this, hit the subscribe button. It helps me out huge, guys. Please, thank you so much. We're on our way to 1,000 subscribers. Super pumped, and don't forget to smash the like button. That helps the algorithm huge, so more people see this. Guys, buying land isn't just about acreage or the view. It's about making sure the lot is truly buildable and affordable. Long term, get you in your budget. Okay. With this checklist, you can avoid hidden costs and expensive surprises. So if you're considering land anywhere in the Black Hills, Spearfish, Sturgis, Rapid City, Hill City, Deadwood, it doesn't matter. Let's make sure you find the right lot. Set up a time with me to talk using the Zoom link below, or just give me a call today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.